Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Cash That. This is your host, Joe Dellera, and I've got producer Cory in the studio with me today. But before we get into it, this episode is brought to you by our good friends at Rhythm. Rhythm is the cutting edge of betting technology. And first off, you can get a free week down in the bio, down in the comments. We're going to put the link in there. Follow it, get a free week, test it out yourself. But the biggest thing is that you can build your own AI models. AI is the new thing, right? Everybody's talking about AI. You got it on your phone. You got it on ChatGPT. People are taking college exams. Why not use it to help you bet, right? Rhythm's got all of that. And you can actually build your own model. You can create different things that you think are important, whether it's pace, whether it's shot quality, whether it's like 3-point percentage or 2-point percentage or rebounds or points in the paint, what have you. You can use that to craft a model for yourself and say, like, these are the things that I think are important. I know ball, right? And then you can see whether or not that model with the things that you think are important is actually creating winners. And you can track that all through Rhythm. There's a desktop and a mobile app for you as well. Plus, they've got all the player prop stuff. They have player prop projections. They have the hit rate charts. They have everything that you're normally used to seeing, and it's all within one app. It's kind of a great deal, and it helps you with not only player props, but it helps you with sides and totals and money lines as well. And you can get, like I said, a free week trial down here in the bio. Producer Cory, we've got the Yankees on like in the background. It's the 8th inning right now of Game 4. How are you feeling?
I'm not trying to get ahead of myself here. I'm not going to say it. I almost did.
Can't say
I'm not going to say it. I'll report back shortly.
Oh no, Freeman just
feeling
made it
better
out.
though.
No, Freeman just made it out, so I think we're okay.
That's what I was literally waiting for that.
The dude has been unbelievable. It's been
they played that stupid fucking feel good story right before the game started, and I was like, well, why the hell would they allow this?
No,
obviously he's gonna have a game. Gets up there, bang, home run. Stupid.
Absolutely pops off.
Idiots. Derek Jeter should have pulled the plug, dude. Come on, help out.
This would actually be the most fitting thing, like after the Red Sox like comeback documentary came out on Netflix, like within like the same like month, the Yankees go and come back from down 3-0. That would be unbelievable. that would be poetic, actually. So that would that would be quite poetic. So maybe that'll happen, because honestly, like that would be the most like fitting thing for everybody. My one friend Kevin Schnorr, fellow guest on the pod, for our horse racing fans out there. So we'll do some horse racing episodes later, you know. But we'll you know, Kevin kept sending me, he's like, this is what a real team does when they're down 3-0. And like, so I need it to happen now. But so we'll see what happens with the Yankees. And then as for our New York Football Giants, it's tough sledding out there for us. But
didn't even watch.
I was
hitting the last button to just sadness. It was like, oh, the Giants suck. Oh, the Yankees are getting pummeled. Oh, the Knicks are down.
Yeah,
there's just no escape.
That was a tough day. I didn't know which. I literally would normally like change the channel onto something else, like so that I could watch one of my teams win, and they were just all losing, and it was awful.
There was no place to hide last night.
But I will say, I think that I still might rather be a Giants fan than a Jets fan. So
yeah, somehow that feels worse.
Somehow it's worse, and like I don't know really how it's doing worse anyway either.
We don't have a kicker problem. That's stupid. No. You can fix that easily, idiots.
Yeah, just get anybody with a leg, you know. But
anybody.
But speaking of NFL, before we get into the NBA slate, we are doing there's a partnership between Rhythm and Splash Sports, and there's a limited entry. It is a 500-person entry. It's $10 a pop, and it's a week 9 pick all against the spread contest. The winner, first place, gets $675, so on and so forth, all the way down to 50th place. So you got to just come in the top 10%, and you are going to make some money. So if you think that you're pretty good at spreads, but maybe you don't want to bet them, maybe you don't want to put them in a parlay, hop in this contest. It's good for me, honestly. It's good for the pod. So if you want to join in, it's $10. Probably gonna be a little bit of fun there. And you know, you can kind of show off. I think it is public. Yeah, it is public. We have the link.
All right, get in there. See if you guys can beat me.
Yeah, Cory and I are gonna both be in there. So see if you can beat us. See if you can beat us. Corey's probably better than me. So
yeah, my fantasy teams are in the shitter, so this is all I've got.
Mine are not. One of mine is 8-0.
Fuck you, dude.
No
one cares.
So we'll put that link in the bio. There's a lot of links in the bio here. But the biggest thing too is before
I'll be sure to describe them.
I know we'll have to put descriptions. We're turning into like a Jalen Brunson podcast because everything's just an ad. It's just a long running ad. And we have a couple more days of the free trial for the huddle as well through Halloween. 2 more days. So today and tomorrow, hop in there. That link is also in the bio. But look, you're going to want to hop in before NBA season really gets going. It's always a lot of fun. There's always a lot of different angles in there. And there's always some way that we're trying to really capitalize on the season and make everybody a little bit of money. So look, the biggest thing is we're going to start diving into this slate, and we got a monster slate. We have a lot of really cool games, and there's going to be a couple ways to get this information. So I'm going to break down the slate here. I'm going to be on J Money's live show on YouTube at like 1:00 or so with him and Michael Fiddle. And we're going to be talking some of the games. So a little bit more sides and totals there, along with obviously some player props. But if you're around, you can hop on the YouTube there and catch me talking to those two fellas. It should be a pretty sharp conversation for the Wednesday slate. But the game that I got to start off talking about, LeBron's going back to Cleveland. LeBron is playing the Cleveland Cavaliers. LeBron and the Lakers, JJ Redick. I will say I'm pretty impressed with the Lakers so far this season. JJ Redick seems to have gotten like some significant buy-in, which I think is honestly the most important thing with this team. It's one of the things that they have really needed, I think, in terms of like continuity, in terms of being able to optimize their roster, in terms of being able to get everybody to crash the boards, run pick and roll, run offense, actually run set design plays. And one of the things that is coming true that I did mention on the pod last time out was that I thought the Lakers were going to be playing at a much slower pace on offense. And that's actually what's happening. The Lakers are playing at the 28th fastest pace. So the third slowest, in other words, the third slowest pace in the NBA. And a lot of that to me, I think has to do with the fact that they're running a ton of set offense. They are running a lot of plays. They're playing almost all their possessions in the half court. They're not sneaking out into transition as much. And I think that that's critically important as to why they are finding a lot of offensive success as well. They have the 4th best offensive rating in the NBA, according to Dunks and Threes at 114.6. This is subject to change to a degree. Obviously, if maybe there's some changes in the late games today at the time that we're recording. But the Lakers have a lot of buy-in with that. Pivot this, and now they're playing a Cleveland Cavaliers team who has been one of the best in the NBA throughout the course of the early season, the first week of the season. Cavs are 4-0. They just beat my Knicks the other day. They have a +4 adjusted net rating. They are 7th in adjusted offense and 4th in adjusted defense. Cavs are -5 at home. The problem is when we look at who Cleveland has played, I think that there's a little bit of skepticism in terms of, who they've played and the quality of their opponents, right? When we look at who they played the Knicks, who, are still going through some of their growing pains, but they played the Wizards, the Pistons, and the Raptors so far to start the season. If we compare that to the Lakers schedule, the Lakers have really kind of gone up against a little bit of a gauntlet in terms of the talent, right? They beat the Minnesota Timberwolves on opening night. They have some roster things. They beat the Phoenix Suns earlier in the season. They beat the Kings, and then they just lost to the Suns in a close game 2 days ago. So they've played a little bit of a higher level of talent, I would say, so far through the season. And that's reflected in the strength of schedule. The Cavs have the 3rd easiest strength of schedule compared to the Lakers are at 1st. So my question here when I'm looking at this spread is, the Cavs are 5-point favorites. I'm not convinced. I'm not firmly convinced that they should be 5-point favorites, and we shouldn't have this be like a little bit tighter. I know that this opened. It looks like there was an opener at -3.5. There's a 5.5 in the market right now at MGM and at ESPN, but I do think that the Lakers should be able to keep this pretty competitive. The one play that I am looking for, though, is I'm looking at LeBron over 22.5 points. He's been a little bit inconsistent so far throughout this season, but one of the things that he has been extremely consistent with is when he plays in Cleveland. Since he's left the Cavs really twice, right? He's played 11 games in Cleveland for the rest of his career. He's averaged 31.6 points, 9.2 rebounds, and 7.5 assists in those 11 games. Obviously, a lot of these games are old. Like some of these games, like one of these games from 2010, right? But even if we look more recently, last year, 22-6-6, year prior, 21-17-4, year before that, 38-10-12, 46-8-6. 32, 14, and 7. So last couple of years, he's been a little bit lower in terms of that point total with 22 and 21. But he got to the he didn't really get to the free throw line too much in either of those games. So, and he did struggle a bit from 3-point range. So part of why I like it, though, is he just always seems to get up for these games. They've talked about Bronny's probably going to play a little bit in this game. LeBron's going to want to show out. LeBron's going to want to win this game in Cleveland with his son. And I just think that we're going to see a little bit more of an aggressive LeBron in this spot. So for me, over 22.5 points is definitely a bet here. I know that there is a little bit of narrative in that, and I don't always like to play that angle, but just looking back, even at the history, last year he still scored 24 points against Cleveland in another game. So he is able to get to the rack against them. He is able to kind of get into the teeth of that defense. And I just think this is a good opportunity here. So even though he's gone under this line in 3 of the 4 games this season, I think it's a little bit of a buyback spot. He had 11 versus Phoenix. He's obviously playing the minutes. He's playing, 33, 34, 35 minutes a game. And he's kind of run into a little bit of shot variance in the past couple of games, but he's other than that, he had the great game against Sacramento, but he's been kind of been in this realm here. So 22.5 points, I'm comfortable with an over. I just think it's a great opportunity from honestly like a little bit of a narrative perspective. I wanted to look at Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis has been absolutely crushing, 26.5 points, but he's really got the toughest matchup on the floor between Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. So considering how good they both have looked and how good they both are defensively, it's not a play that I want. And that's also part of why I'm looking at LeBron James's points prop in the spot. The one prop that does stand out, though, is Jared Allen over 9.5 rebounds. It's kind of juiced, like -140, but I do think it's a play that you could go after. He has been over since 2021, so it's a number of years, but it's got all these games against Anthony Davis. He's hit this in 4 or 5 games against the Lakers, 9, 11, 11, 14, and 12 rebounds. So he's somebody that's able to stay in the paint. He's able to drop. He's able to really grab these defensive rebounds, offensive rebounds, etc. And he's averaging 18.8 rebound chances in those games. So couple different looks from the Lakers versus the Cavaliers in LeBron's return to Cleveland. The next game that I want to talk about is obviously the Knicks versus the Miami Heat. Big game for a variety of different reasons. But the biggest issue for the New York Knicks is that Josh Hart is on the injury report. There are some concerns regarding I believe it's his hamstring here. He's due to a lower leg contusion. He's questionable for this game, whatever lower leg contusion actually means, right? And the key here for Hart has been that he obviously helps a lot with the running of the offense. He helps a lot with the rebounding, and he helps a lot with the defensive effort and the switchability that the Knicks are able to have. The interesting thing too is from a depth perspective, New York gets pretty thin pretty rapidly. And when we look at their depth chart for the Knicks, without Hart, you have to wonder, do they slide Huck Porty into the lineup a little bit more? Does Bridges wind up playing a little bit more of the 4? Even OG basically has to play the 4. Does Bridges then play a little bit more of the 3? And you see Miles McBride enter the starting lineup, but they're very, very thin right now. So you should probably expect to see as many minutes as like Karl Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson, Bridges, Anunoby can handle, and honestly, even McBride, which helps from a little bit of a player prop perspective. And I think it might actually help a little bit with the spacing. So if we look at Brunson and Bridges, they actually see fairly significant upticks in effective field goal percentage without Josh Hart. It's a little bit wonky with Brunson because Brunson's only played about 8 minutes without Hart, whereas Bridges has been staggered a little bit more. So there's a little bit more opportunity for him there. But the spot that I think you can kind of target if you're looking for a prop here is not Brunson. I think that Karl Anthony Towns' rebounds probably should stand out. I think it's a tough matchup for him against Bam Adebayo generally. However, from a rebounding perspective, so far this season, he's had 7, 15, and 10. Miami is not like notoriously great at rebounding. Bam Adebayo is not like a notoriously great rebounder. And without Hart on the floor, if Hart doesn't play, that is, Towns is going to be able to really grab up a lot more of those softer rebounding opportunities that, Hart a lot of times just was hustling, grabbing the board, and trying to push the ball in transition. So I think that we might see Towns grab a couple more boards that way. And he's set at 9.5. Make sure you shop around because sometimes you can get like the double price, and that is obviously going to be maybe like a little bit cheaper. And it's always like important to try to, make sure that you're getting the best number possible, obviously. From a spread perspective, though, if we look at this game, looking at dunks and threes, the Knicks are 1-2, but they actually have the 9th best adjusted net rating at +3. They have the 8th best offense, the 10th best defense. They played the 2nd hardest strength of schedule. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they played the Boston Celtics early in the season. And Boston's just absolutely destroying everybody. So New York has a little bit of an edge there. And when we look at Miami's 2-1, -0.4 adjusted net, 21st in offense, 110.5, and 11th in defense at 110.9. So I do have some questions in regards to the pace of this game, though, because if we look at this, the Knicks are 30th in pace and the Miami Heat are 29th in pace. The biggest concern really is that the Knicks, it's because they play at the slowest offensive pace in the league, whereas Miami is generally like kind of bogging down their opponents, and their opponents are playing at the slowest offensive pace in the league, or so to speak. So Miami's able to drag out their defensive possessions. So I think that could kind of go poorly for New York just because of the way that Miami plays defense and the way that New York has struggled a little bit so far to really get into any type of real rhythm this season. And like, even though the numbers that they're putting up are good, even though the offensive spots look good, they have struggled a little bit to like kind of catch some footing, aside from against the Indiana Pacers, where the Pacers just, they don't play a ton of defense. So the Knicks were really able to put the pedal to the metal and get rolling on the offensive side of the ball. So we'll see. I would lean New York just based truly on these adjusted net ratings. The way the spread looks, you're looking at Knicks -1.5, -2 or so on the road. It's tough because obviously Miami's super well coached, but and they're at home. But at the same time, this is a spot where the number like on the advanced metrics obviously favors the Knicks. And I think that there's maybe a little bit of opportunity to buy here, where the Knicks have really struggled against two teams that not only do we expect to be good in the East so far between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics, but they both had a lot of continuity. And for a New York team that is kind of going through some growing pains, is a little bit more difficult. Miami has some continuity, but they are still working through some things with Tyler Hero having to play with Terry Rozier and the spacing of that, because they had had so many injuries towards the back half of the year when they did get Terry Rozier. A lot of this is still kind of new for them in terms of their rotations, in terms of their spacing. And obviously they had the opportunity to practice in the offseason, but there is, a little bit of room for them to grow. One prop that I'm looking at from the Miami side, though, is Jimmy Butler always seems to play the Knicks really, really well. He had that really rough opener where he scored just 3 points against Orlando. But since then, he scored 26 points against Charlotte and 23 points against Detroit. And when we look back at his games against the Knicks, if we look back over the past couple of seasons, 12 for 15 on this 17.5 point line, 80%, averaging 23.7 points against the New York Knicks. And that's all during the regular season, because he didn't play against the Knicks in the playoffs. So there's no playoff bias there. I think you really got to take a look at Jimmy over 17.5 points. It just seems to be too good of a spot. He's getting too much usage even now still. Besides the blowout, he's playing 36 minutes, 34 minutes. And he's getting shots up. He's averaging, he's taking, he took 8, 15, and 11 shots so far this season. And the conversions have been good. I think, he's kind of shooting into pretty good variance, but part of Miami's process is that they do have a lot of players that can obviously score the basketball. And while Jimmy has a little bit of a tougher matchup, obviously going against like Anunoby and Bridges, Jimmy's somebody that always seems to excel in a lot of these spots and a lot of these opportunities here. And I'm not firmly convinced that just because he's playing against Anunoby, it's going to be an issue. In the 2 games that he played against Anunoby over the past couple of seasons, one with Toronto and one with the Knicks, he still scored 19 and 28 points in those spots. So Jimmy over 17.5 points, I think, is definitely a play. Another game that we need to talk about is the Boston Celtics versus the Indiana Pacers, rematch of the Eastern Conference Finals from last year. Boston is a 6.5 to 7 point road favorite. The biggest thing is that Boston is just absolutely blowing the doors off of everybody. From an offensive perspective, they are shooting 55.5% of their shots from 3-point range. That is a mind-numbing number. It is like blowing the doors off of everything from any other year. Last year, Boston led the league 47.1% from 3. The year before, 48% from 3. And we just got a little dinger action in the Yankee game. So we love it. We needed it. Corey, how you feeling?
I'll say the thing you wanted me to say earlier, but I'll say it now because it seems safer. Thank God we didn't get swept.
Thank God. I was getting real nervous, honestly. I was getting really nervous.
I don't know if I could deal with that.
I would have died, I think. It just was going to be a disaster.
Yeah. They look like themselves again. Anyway, back to basketball.
Yeah, back to basketball. We'll be okay here. Man, just so many fucking hooks. It's unbelievable. Anyway, hopefully Pajemski gets this triple-double because that would be sick. We gave out Pajemski 70-1 on the triple-double. He's tracking for it right now. We're right before half, and we're at halftime. He's got 9 points, 4 boards, and 5 assists. So that would be sick. Anyway, back to the Celtics. The year before that, 2022, the leader in 3-point percentage by volume, by like distribution, the Utah Jazz, 46.8%. So like we've really never seen numbers quite like this. 55.5% is so significant. This is an interesting matchup, though, against the Indiana Pacers, because the Pacers don't really allow a ton of threes by like design. They've kind of come off of that a little bit after last year, where they're allowing a few more threes, but it's not as significant. They're closer to the middle of the pack now at 40.5%. But they are doing a good job of limiting that efficiency. They're 5th at 31.5%. Last year, if we compare this from the 3-point percentage perspective. They were allowing only 32.7%. So I think this aligns pretty well with what Boston's going to be like wanting to do on the offensive side of the ball. Additionally, Indiana plays at the second fastest pace in the league. Boston plays at a little bit slower. They're 19, or I'm sorry, we're looking at last year. Boston's been really slow. Indiana's playing at they're playing at the 22nd fastest pace in the league, which is slow. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Halliburton just doesn't look like Halliburton. And we'll touch on that in a minute. Boston's playing at the 25th fastest pace in the league. So they are playing slow. They played slow last year. It's not super surprising, but at the same time, Boston, again, best net rating in the NBA, best offensive rating in the NBA, 7th best in defense. Indiana is all the way down at 20th, 10th best offense, 21st ranked defense. And we saw like, it's kind of one of those things where you're like, it's not like transitive property or whatever, where you're like, oh, the Knicks lost to the Celtics, but the Knicks destroyed the Pacers. So the Celtics should beat the Pacers. Like, that's not how it works, but like, that's probably what's going to happen here. Honestly, I think that 6.5 might be a little short. I think Boston's going to put up a number here. The one prop, though, that I am looking at is Jason Tatum over 36.5 points plus rebounds. And you can get this at -105 on MGM. Tatum has absolutely cooked the Pacers. And the biggest thing is that he has the ability to score at every level. He can score whether it's attacking the rack, whether it is from the mid-range, whether it's from 3-point range. And when you couple this with the fact that Indiana doesn't have like a true rebounding center, he's been able to put up some big rebounding numbers against them as well. Last year, he averaged 31.4 points and 10.6 rebounds per game against the Pacers, went over this line of 36.5 in 7 of 8 games head-to-head, including those playoff games as well. And I think you could actually argue he was better during the regular season when teams weren't deploying like slightly more nuanced coverages against him. He's just been on his absolute revenge tour, but the biggest thing to me is that he doesn't rely on any one type of scoring in order to get his. So I think that this is a great opportunity to go back to him in a matchup that he has really, really thrived in, and in a spot where I think that we should see maybe a little bit of a pickup in pace from Indiana. I think part of that was dragged down by who they played. They played the Magic and they played the Knicks, 2 teams that have played unbelievably slow to start this season. Now, when we look at Halliburton, we got to talk about Halliburton because Halliburton has been almost like an enigma, right? In terms of what we are like expecting to see out of him. And he's really, really struggled so far this season. He just actually had like almost a triple double against the Orlando Magic where Paolo dropped his 50 burger too and almost had a triple double. But his assist line all the way down at 7.5. And he just had, the biggest thing is like, he just had 10 against Orlando, but the issue is like these potential assists for him have just been way down. He's had 12, 10, 6, and 12 so far this season. And you figure it's going to change. You figure it's going to regress back or, or like adjust back to where it was. But the problem is that when we look at what Indiana has been doing so far this season, it's just been, honestly, it's just been a little bit different. Looking across the board for them from a potential assist perspective, him and Nembhard are tied in potential assists at 10. McConnell's at 6.5, Siakam's at 6. And from an actual assist perspective, Nembhard 6 assists, Siakam 5.3, Halliburton 5.3, McConnell 3.5. Even looking at adjusted assists, so it's essentially like a slightly adjusted number based off of like free throws, etc. Halliburton's in first at 7.8, but he's not popping off the page in potentials. So you have to wonder, like, what's Indiana doing? Are they trying to figure something else out on offense right now? Is Halliburton not 100% healthy? Like, what is the situation here? What's the scenario? And it's tough to see. It's tough to understand. What we are getting an opportunity to do, though, is you are able to kind of bet at some of these like higher odds numbers because you can say like, well, I want to bet double-double or I want to bet 10 plus assists for Haliburton because he has that type of ceiling, even though it hasn't really been actualized so far this season. And I think that that's kind of one of the things that's important. The biggest thing for me was when I was looking at some of the tracking data for Haliburton was his teammates are shooting horribly off of his passes, which is something that obviously like, we weren't really seeing last year. But like to give you some perspective, Miles Turner is 4 for 18 off of his shots. That's 22%. And he is tied with Siakam for like the number one dude that he passes to. Even going down some of these, Nembhard is 3 for 11. Nesmith, 1 for 7. Ben Shepherd, 1 for 4. So you keep kind of going down the list and you're like, oh, like the conversions aren't good. Like the looks maybe aren't good. But it does make you wonder. It's like, is it a spacing thing? Is it a Haliburton thing? Like, is he not setting his teammates up as well as he was last year? Or is it just these guys, it's been 1 week, these guys aren't making these shots. Even if they kind of moved up a little bit to like 50%, then we would be looking at a different scenario. There's only one player. There's 2 players that are shooting really above 50%. And Isaiah Jackson's 1 for 1. So 100%. Obi Toppin 2 for 3. Anybody with any type of volume is not making shots for him. And I think that's kind of what the problem has been with some of these conversions on the assists. Do I want to take any part of this against the Boston Celtics? Maybe. When we look at what he did against them last year, he had some big games. He had a couple double-digit games at 10, 10, 13. But he did have a couple games where he was at 7, 6, and 8. So I do have some concerns against Boston because of the way that they're able to attack him with Derek White, Drew Holiday, etc. I don't know if this is the spot that I want to back Tyrese Haliburton. But if we look at the rest of their schedule, they have a game against the Pelicans. They have a game against the on Friday. They have a game against the Mavericks this coming Monday. Those might be slightly more advantageous spots to back Tyrese Haliburton. So that's one of the things that I would kind of try to consider. The next game that I want to talk about is a great matchup here because we get Chet versus Wemby again. The Spurs are 13.5-point underdogs against the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are absolutely rolling right now. The Thunder have the number 1 defense in the league, 106.2 adjusted defensive rating, second adjusted net rating at plus 6.4 to the Boston Celtics, and the offense is only 15th. The thing about the offense, though, is that they are shooting just 27.6% from three-point range, and that, I would imagine, is going to change. Last year, this Oklahoma City team shot 38.8% from three, which was tied with the Boston Celtics for the best three-point percentage in the NBA. When we consider that, and we consider the fact that they are shooting right now the 29th, the second worst three-point percentage in the NBA, this Oklahoma City Thunder team basically can only get better. And from a defensive perspective, the problem with the Spurs is that not only do they allow a decent amount of threes, their opponents have the 6th best three-point percentage against them. So to me, as good as I think Wemby is, as good as I think Wemby is going to be, this Spurs team is not very good. They're 22nd in adjusted net rating. They are 22nd in adjusted offense, and they are 20th in adjusted defense. I think that we need to take a little bit of a step back on the Wemby Defensive Player of the Year stuff. We talked about this on the pod. We talked about how we didn't think he was good value. We thought there was better value on other players. If you liked Wemby, that just wasn't even the way to do it. I like Wemby, but I still don't think that was the way to do it for Defensive Player of the Year. There were too many variables. It doesn't go to players on bad defensive teams. And that was kind of what we thought might be the case for the San Antonio Spurs. So for me, when I look at this game, when I look at this spread, I think that you have to consider you have to consider the Thunder. I think that the number is a little bit, the number is a little bit like less than palatable. So I have concerns on the back end. I think that maybe the way you handle this is the Thunder you could maybe handle this as like Thunder in the first half. It's probably going to be about like 7.5 maybe for this spot. And I will say that when we look at by half, let's filter some of these numbers here. The Memphis Grizzlies are first. The Boston Celtics are second. The Oklahoma City Thunder are third in adjusted net rating at 16.7. Spurs are 14th at plus 2.7. But it just goes to show you just how far ahead Oklahoma City is in the first half. They just are rolling teams with that starting rotation that they're generally putting out there. The other thing that I will say that I think is fascinating, and they talked about this on the Dunker spot, was that, let me pull up the number. So when we look at Oklahoma City's defensive rating, it's the best in the NBA, 106.2. They obviously have some really great defensive players. They have they obviously just got Alex Caruso. They have Chet Holmgren, who has been incredible, right? When I thought about, like, when you think about this, you would say, like, all right, yeah, like, I'm sure those guys have played a ton of minutes together, because that would absolutely make sense, right? So if you actually filter it by Chet and Alex Caruso for their number of minutes, number of possessions, they played 9 minutes together, 62 possessions. They are a plus 55 in those possessions, and they have a 124 offensive rating and a 69.2 defensive rating. They've been absolutely wrecking teams. And they're not even using that lineup. So the one caution that I have with Oklahoma City from like a betting perspective right now is that I think it's abundantly clear that Daigneault knows this team is really, really good. And he is experimenting with a ton of different rotations. The reason I kind of even noticed this was they started doing like literally different rotations every day. So like one day, like Shea normally plays the entire third quarter. That was like his typical rotation last season, right? And he even did that the year before. This year, that's not what they're doing. And Shea like came out midway through, came back in towards the end of the third quarter. It's really just a little odd. And it changes some of the analysis that you have to make for betting on some of these guys' props, because it was so normal for Shea to get the whole third quarter that you could almost like comfortably bet on him to go like over his points line, because you felt like you were like, well, I might only miss out on maybe like a 6-minute portion of the rotation if it's a blowout. Now you have to kind of reassess it, because these guys might not come in the fourth quarter at all, and they might have limited minutes in the third quarter. So it definitely has made it a little bit more difficult to predict exactly what is going on this season, just from like a rotational perspective. And what you could do is you could even say like, well, like I want to look at the first quarter, but you can't, because he's not playing the entire first quarter of the season either. And that was something that he had done on occasion last year. So he was generally playing, 12 minutes. He was almost always playing the whole first quarter. And now we're seeing 9 minutes, 11 minutes. It's a little bit wonky. It's a little bit tougher to follow. So it's been really, really tough with some of the rotations so far this season. And it's something that you absolutely need to kind of keep an eye out for when you're betting on some of these player props. I do want to talk about some Chet and Wemby props, though. Wemby is over 11.5 rebounds in 3 of 3 games against Chet. And Chet is under 9.5 rebounds in all 3 games against Wemby. And Chet is over 2.5 assists in all 3 games against Wemby as well, with 3, 4, and 5. So there might be a little bit of opportunity to bring these things together. Chet has obviously been insane so far this season, just been truly incredible front to back, really leading this team from a defensive perspective as well. But I do think there is a little opportunity here to try to take some advantage of this individual matchup. I think that these two players are going to be going at each other. I think that there is like a little bit of like a camaraderie. There is a little bit of a rivalry between the two of them, and they know it and they love it. And I think that's fun. I think that's awesome. I think that keeps things really interesting. And I think that that's going to be something that we can watch and are going to be able to enjoy in the spot. So I do think this is going to be a pretty tightly contested battle between the two of them, but I am interested in both of those plays. I'm interested in Wemby. Obviously, it's tough because he just he just had 20 rebounds against Houston the other day, but he has had 14, 12, and 13 rebounds against Oklahoma City. Chet is going to be playing the 5. I think this is going to be an opportunity for Victor to go over the rebounds. And then for Chet, it's a tough rebounding matchup. Even though he's been great this season with 14, 16, and 9, this is a little bit different opportunity here in this spot against Victor, where they really are lined up kind of head to head against each other. So if they're really realistically, they're correlated in terms of the rebounds. If Wemby goes over, for Chet to go under, I don't think it's crazy to try to parlay the two of them together and try to find a little bit of value in this game. And, just for that rivalry kind of aspect between these two teams. I'm not super interested in a lot of these other games. I will say that it's bizarre that the Pelicans and the Warriors are playing literally back-to-back games. Like, they're playing right now, and then they're going to be playing again tomorrow. It's weird. Like, we don't see too many of games like that where there's these true back-to-back spots. I'm curious to see how this rotation works out. So far, we are seeing it's tough because we're recording. It's like the third quarter right now. Pajemski's obviously playing really well. Draymond Green, one of the things I will say is that he has generally seen a downturn in his output when he doesn't play alongside of Steph Curry. So that's something that you should definitely watch. And you could read my in a little bit more detail in my player props forecast. I talked about a lot of the impact of Steph Curry missing time. It sounds like he's getting reevaluated on Friday. To me, that does not mean that he's going to play this week. It might mean that he's not going to even play next week either. So definitely something to kind of consider and keep an eye on. I will say they brought Kuminga off the bench in this game, but he's got 10 points at half. He played 15 minutes, was the first guy off the bench. I think that was more of a spacing thing than anything. I think that he's still going to see a ton of minutes. And I think this is definitely still a spot where you could probably continue to back him and probably continue to find a bit of value in this game. So we'll have to see what kind of plays out in this first game. And no, Wiggins didn't play either, so that's another factor. We're going to have to see how Wiggins slots in, because Wiggins does see a little bit of a usage uptick as well. But it's definitely going to be something to monitor, especially because we're going to have the back-to-back game. Always have to be worried, is Zion going to play in a back-to-back? So that's another thing to kind of keep in the back of your mind. If they start opening up some of these props again, it might be a good spot to back like a Brandon Ingram or a CJ McCollum from maybe an assist perspective or a points perspective. Just be given the nature of the fact that it's a back-to-back with actually zero rest. Another thing that I would consider, the Raptors are playing the Hornets. Going to be a gross game. It's going to be a game that you probably have very little interest in actually watching. But LaMelo Ball has been absolutely preposterous, and the highlights are unbelievable. He's shooting more threes than I've ever seen in my life. The dude is shooting right now. He's taking 12 threes a game, and he's making 5. He's shooting 41% from 3. Is this the percentage going to sustain? I'm not 100% certain, but he's not super far off of what his career averages are. The volume, though, is what I'm most interested in. I wonder if part of this is because Brandon Miller's hurt, but to me, I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that LaMelo has the ball in his hands, and he gets to shoot the ball whenever he wants to because it's his team. So his points prop, you have to look at, especially against this Raptors team. And who have like a variety of different injuries kind of going on. I think that's why we don't have player props up yet. And you need to look at his threes prop. If his threes line is at 3.5, you have to take it. If his points prop is, say, like 24.5, 25.5, I feel like it should be higher than that. You should definitely be taking that as well. He's averaging 7 rebounds, 7.3 assists. The dude has just been an absolute menace. But I will say, because of this, there is a little bit of opportunity to bet on his turnovers. He's had 2, 10, and 5. 10 is crazy. 10 is so many turnovers. So there is a little bit of an opportunity there. We'll see what the turnover line looks like, and maybe that'll be something that's actionable for us as well. But he's turning the ball over a lot, and that's just by virtue of the fact that he just has preposterous usage so far this season, and he's going to be allowed to continue to do that. It's like I said, it's his team. He can kind of do whatever he wants. His usage has gone up every season, and he's up to 37.8%. That's like Harden-esque levels. So definitely something to keep an eye on, definitely something to monitor. And it's definitely a player prop that I would consider for the Wednesday slate, but there's no lines out yet at the time of the recording. So we'll, right now that's what we're looking at. We're also looking at, there is one player prop that I was kicking around, and I was trying to figure out why is this line the way that it is. When we look at the Orlando versus the Bulls game, Orlando's been playing kind of slow, but Chicago has been playing extremely fast without DeMar DeRozan this year. Wendell Carter Jr.'s points line is set at 10.5. He has hit that in 8 of 9 games against the Chicago Bulls over the past couple of seasons. The biggest thing is that because Vucevic is playing, I just think it's a good matchup for him stylistically. He has seen this total like kind of come down a bit after scoring like in the 20s a couple of years ago. Last year and the year before, he was really only at like 11, 15, 6, and 11. His points props at 10.5 though. So it's something I'm kicking the tires on. I want to see if there's something to it, but he has played good minutes this season. It just hasn't really translated. He's averaged 30.2 minutes per game, 8, 8, 3, and 11 points. So only gone over it once, but I think this might be a better spot. He's had some tougher matchups against Miami. Brooklyn has Claxton and like Ben Simmons, that type of thing on the defensive side. Memphis, obviously, you're dealing with Edey, you're dealing with Jaren Jackson Jr., and then Indiana, he went over, but Paolo just went absolutely bonkers. So, not as many offensive opportunities there either. But 10.5 points for Wendell Carter Jr., definitely like an over that I'm considering. So, Producer Cory, how are we doing?
Yes, Joe.
Are we doing better now that the Yankees won?
Doing better. Doing way better. The weather's starting to get a little colder. There's a little bit of rain now, so you can start your campfires again soon. Everything's looking up.
I think this is a good opportunity for us. It's a great day. I think that I think somebody said, I think it was probably Stanton. No, it was Garrett Cole. They asked him, they were like, how do you feel like going into game 4? Like, you have to win 4 in a row. And he was like, we had to win 4 before game 1 anyway. It's just it's like, you got to win anyway. It's fine.
You could tell he excelled in math too.
Yeah. He's like, I'm good at this.
4 is 4.
Yeah. We got to win 4. It doesn't matter. All right. So Cory, what do you got for us for pods and recs?
Go outside and play golf. It's the best time of year to play golf. I played on Saturday and didn't sweat. It was amazing.
I got to get out there and golf. That's a great idea.
Lost a lot of balls. You will lose a lot of balls in the leaves.
True.
Hazard. Fine. Who cares? Get cheap balls.
It is what it is.
Buy cheap balls. Have fun. Beautiful outside.
I love this idea. It's like when you play a water hole and you break out the top flight and you're just like, this.
That noodle I found 3 holes ago. I'm going to use this now.
I'm going to use this now because, who knows where this has been? Who knows where it's going? But it's probably not going to stay on the green.
Yeah, if you're on the tee box and you're looking at just fields of leaves, don't use a ball you like.
Yeah, like maybe use a shitty ball. Save the good ball for when you're putting or something like that, or chipping, whatever. I had it's officially soup season, and
oh, buddy, I've been on it.
I know. Jenna made Jenna made a butternut squash soup today. It's fantastic.
Nice.
It was. I was a little bit surprised. It's closer. It's pretty close in consistency to like a split pea. Honestly,
I was about to say, when does that cross the threshold to becoming a bisque?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Why isn't split pea considered a bisque?
Let's ask. Let's ask ChatGPT. What they're verifying that I'm human. There's some irony to that, I think.
That is pretty funny. What'll happen if it talks to someone that isn't a human?
What is the difference?
Welcome to the Red Pill Corner.
A bisque and a soup? Is that really? Is that?
Yeah, I guess that's the question.
All right. So it's not really about the thickness.
Oh, is it about the ingredients?
Yeah.
Seafood?
The main difference between a bisque and a soup lies in their ingredients and preparation methods.
Interesting.
1. Ingredients. Bisques are typically made with shellfish, like lobster, crab, or shrimp, or often creamy, while soups can be made from a variety of ingredients, including vegetables, meats, grains, and legumes. Texture. Bisques are generally smooth and velvety, often pureed and then finished with cream. Soups can be chunky or smooth depending on the recipe.
Time out. Is a bisque and a chowder the same thing then?
Oh, is a bisque?
But then there's like non-seafoody chowders, like corn chowder.
It also says that bisques often involve the process of making a stock from the shellfish shells.
Okay, and so we're using a shellfish stock and a cream finish.
And we're actually,
seafood.
We're in the square rectangle thing where all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares. Yeah. So all bisques are soups, but not all soups are bisques. And then I asked,
what about chowder? I'll get chowder involved.
The same as a chowder. And it says that bisques are typically creamy soups made from shellfish, whatever. Chowders are chunkier and can include a variety of ingredients like potatoes, corn, and seafood or meats. So like bisques are smooth.
They're talking about food processor to the lobster versus chunks of lobster. That's basically the main difference.
Yeah, pretty much.
Who knew? I had no idea.
And they're both types of soup. So we're still in the
soup is the big tent.
The overarching thing.
Yeah.
So I'm recommending. We didn't use cream, so no. I guess it's still a soup then.
Yeah. Okay. So you stayed on the soup side of the fence.
I think I'm on the soup side.
You didn't get into the nitty gritty of the bisque chowder world.
Yeah, we didn't get too far into the shellfish of it. But no, it was great soup. Would recommend like throwing a couple croutons in there though. I feel like it's that type of soup. It's not like a cracker soup. It could be a bread soup, but I think the croutons are like a better move. So I'm going to recommend soups. This one was a butternut squash soup. She also made, the reason that she made this though, is because the other day I didn't know this was even a thing. It was like Honey Crisp squash, which I thought they were apples. And apparently
I couldn't point that out in the lineup.
No. So I don't really know what the difference is, but they have honey nut squash. It's honey nut squash. And I was like,
I've had that.
I didn't know that was a thing, but she made this same soup with the honey nut squash the other day for like her girls' night or whatever. And I tasted that. That was actually a little bit better, I think, than the butternut squash. So we talked about it. We're not upset about the result of the butternut squash soup, but next time,
you didn't step on any landmines here.
Yeah, but next time I think we're gonna go with the honey nut squash, and they look like a mini butternut squash, but it's a sweeter, deeper orange flesh, according to Google. That's the way they.
We're in a very niche area of food where there's a lot of overlap, but also some very clear distinctions, and it's driving me crazy.
Yeah, I can't tell. There's a lot of things going on there, and there's a lot of gourds out there.
I didn't know there were so many.
No, I didn't. I really didn't either. And then it's like when you go to the pumpkin patch and they have all the ones that like have like all the skin diseases on them, basically, and they're just like, these are like $5, and I'm like, why? Like I can't do anything with them.
Did you know jack-o'-lanterns were supposed to be made out of turnips and not pumpkins?
Really?
Where it originates. Have you ever seen one made out of a turnip?
It's got to be terrifying.
It will haunt you.
I'm going to look it up.
Thank God we buffed it with like just using pumpkins. It's just friendlier looking.
Turnip jack-o'-lantern. Holy God, dude.
There you go. You're not sleeping tonight.
We're going to make everybody see this.
I can make it the cover art if we really wanted to. Happy Halloween. Ah!
Hold on. I can't do it this way. I got to do it this way. It needs to be on. These are crazy, dude.
Told you. They're fucking terrifying. Imagine finding that in the woods. Everybody.
Some of them some of them are like make some more sense, but like
some do, but those top few are fucking
these top
awful.
Ones are crazy.
They almost look like a polished up skull or something.
Yeah,
like
I don't know.
Someone took fine sandpaper to a man's head and just went to town.
Dude, I don't know if I've ever. What is this? Is this what it is? A Samhain turnip jack-o'-lantern. Are these It says these are Irish.
Where do you think these very fun festivities came from?
Fair enough point.
Come on.
Fair enough point. I don't know. I had no idea. Speaking of which,
go knock on the neighbor's door. See if he's got something for you.
Today is the day before Halloween. What do you call it?
My birthday.
Also that.
Yeah, we're gonna have the Mischief Night debate now.
No, I'm on Mischief Night as well.
Yeah, no. What's the other stupid fucking name that people have?
We've
had this discussion before on a podcast of a different name.
Mischief Night.
It's fucked up. It's like a really dumb name.
Yeah, it's something else. It's what else is it called?
It sounds childish.
Or what?
The best way I could describe it.
The back end of this podcast is great podcasting. Goosey Night.
That's it. Yeah. What the fuck is that?
Here's all the names. Wikipedia says there's Devil's Night.
How many are there? That I've heard.
Devil's Gate Night, Goosey Night, Moving
Goosey
Night
makes no sense.
Cabbage Night, Mystery Night.
Looking at the Irish on Cabbage Night, someone came up with that one.
Mystery Night and Matt Night.
Mischief Night makes the most sense. I don't understand why there's any other confusion here.
No, that just makes
Goosey. What in the fuck?
Goosey is crazy. Goosey is crazy. I don't understand that at all. But
have you noticed that like it's not what it used to be?
No, nobody does it.
And
anymore,
it's not because of like ring cameras. It happened before that.
I forgot. Yeah, well,
it was like
ring cameras definitely didn't help.
It was like Sandy. That was like when it officially stopped happening.
Yeah, people were like, "Stop fucking around with our stuff here."
Well, on either side of the aisle, I think you're on. I think we can all agree that political fucking front lawns have gotten out of control.
Oh,
and I think the teenagers used to keep everybody in check. And ever since they stopped fucking with your front lawn, people just feel like they can put out whatever they want. Like someone needs to visit Alito's house and egg that shit. Make his wife put those fucking weird flags away.
Yeah,
this is how you do it. This is how you
everybody
do it.
needs to be.
You have 9 political signs on your front lawn, toilet paper in your tree. Go deal with that now.
Everybody needs to be bullied a little bit more.
Exactly.
That would really help.
The older generation who own property have stopped getting fucking pushed around by the neighborhood teens once a year to keep them in check. Yeah, a couple kids would get arrested every year, but guess what? No one cares when you're 16. You should be throwing toilet paper and egging people.
It's absolutely unbelievable.
This is a system of checks and balances that we need to restore.
Yeah, like we need to bring back throwing turnips at people. I don't know.
Not a turnip, dude. You'll fucking kill somebody.
Jack-o'-lantern. Jack-o'-lantern turnip. Well, the pumpkin
dude,
things
have you cut a turnip? You ever cut a turnip? It's like concrete.
It's impossible.
You need a hammer and a knife.
Yeah. And then
throw pumpkins, not turnips.
Yeah, you might like break your hand or the knife.
Don't go to prison for manslaughter because you threw a turnip instead of a pumpkin.
It's absolutely unbelievable. So, we do what we can. We do what we can here. But with that, Producer Cory kind of stole my thunder when he asked, what do you call it today? And then he was like, my birthday. And I was like, fuck, man. Like,
gotcha,
that was supposed to be my joke. But it is Producer Cory's birthday today. So everybody please, well, not today, but in 18 minutes. But then when this goes live, it'll be today. So make sure to wish Producer Cory a happy birthday. Great guy. Very happy birthday.
Thank you.
hopefully this year is even better than the last.
Hey, dude, you know what year this is?
What year?
This is my Patrick Ewing year.
That's amazing.
I'm really excited. I just ordered a new Patrick Ewing jersey for myself.
That's fucking awesome. You literally
I don't know if you could see me looking down. I had to custom make it, so it took a while.
You literally can't get any better than that. So, all right, guys, with that, it's Producer Cory's Patrick Ewing year right now, and it's going to be an absolute winner. And be sure to continue winning with Rhythm. Get Rhythm for 7 days free. Use the link in the bio here to get the absolute cutting edge of betting technology literally in your pocket, on your phone, at your fingertips at any second of the day. You could tweak your model. You can check out their model. If you like, it's great for people that are numbers guys, that want to be numbers guys, because you can actually use all their things, all the projections, and get the absolute best of every single number. And you can get that for free for 7 days. Use the link in the bio. It's a no-brainer. You're going to have it on your phone, on your desktop. I've got it right here. And we were using it during the podcast. So absolutely awesome tool. And it's one that you 100% need to have as we continue to cash that.